Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's show is not like any other. Tonight, we venture into the shadows to uncover a story that no one has dared to speak of. Yes, my beloved audience, I, Fryson F. Spudsley, am about to bring you the most chilling, heartfelt tale of our time. A story of love, betrayal, vengeance, and, above all, tears. Please brace yourselves as we welcome our guest for tonight, a figure shrouded in grief. She is the root mother of none other than the cry-maker onion known as the Queen Onion. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Mrs. Root. Thank you for joining us tonight. I understand how difficult this must be for you. Take us back to the beginning. Tell us about the sweet, good-smelling girl Romina used to be. The dark forest, where she became the cry-maker.
Hello to your audience, and thank you for having me here. Romina, my baby girl, was once the sweetest thing in the vegetable patch. She had this gentle fragrance, like fresh spring in bloom, and a soul as pure as morning dew. She loved flowers, and she had a talent for weaving them into crowns. Wherever she went, she brought a little light, a little joy. Romina had a soft spot for love stories and dreamed of her own. She met Mark, a dashing young garlic, at the annual Harvest Festival. Oh, Mark, such a refined gentleman. He came from a distinguished family, well seasoned in every sense. They hit it off right away, bonding over their shared love for poetry and moonlit walks. I remember how her eyes sparkled whenever she talked about him. She would hum little tunes as she braided her stems, dreaming of their future together. They had plans, you know? Big plans. She was sure they'd get married one day. But then came that terrible, rainy day. Romina and Mark met at their favorite spot, the Lovers' Bridge, a quaint little wooden bridge. I could tell something was wrong when she left that day. Her usual floral crown replaced by a simple scarf. And then she came back, soaked to her core, her layers trembling, her tears blending with the rain. He said he needed space, that their lives were too different, and he thought it was time to move on. Space? What kind of nonsense was that? They were perfect together. Romina was never the same after that day. She stopped braiding flowers and started closing herself off. Her heart was broken. She tried to move on, bless her heart, but something in her had changed. And then came that day, the day she saw him. Romina was on her way to the market, just picking up some leeks and shallots. She walked past the Lux Garden Hotel, a place she would never usually go near. Too fancy, too flashy for someone like us. But something made her glance inside, just for a moment. And there he was, Mark, but not just Mark. Mark holding hands with her. A supermodel carrot. She was flawless, with her sleek, glossy skin and impossibly long legs. She looked like she had just stepped out of a photo shoot for Vegetable Vogue. And there they were, standing in the middle of the lobby, laughing, holding hands, like they didn't have a care in the world. Romina froze. She stood there on the sidewalk, clutching her grocery bag, watching as her dreams shattered all over again. My sweet Romina was gone. She started wearing dark. It was another sleepless night, the kind I had grown used to since Romina changed. The house was cold and empty, the way it always felt since she stopped coming home for dinner, stopped sitting with me by the fire to talk about her dreams. That night, whispers reached my ears. Mark was getting married. The venue, none other than the Grand Blossom Ballroom, the most luxurious and expensive hotel in the city. And the bride, the same supermodel carrot. The gossip spread like wildfire, and with every whisper, my heart sank deeper. I prayed, begged the stars, that Romina wouldn't hear about it. But what a fool I was. She had disappeared hours before, without a word, and I just knew. A terrible knot twisted in my core as I ran after her, desperate to stop her from doing something she might regret. Or worse, something she wouldn't need. When I arrived at the wedding, my worst fears seemed unfounded. The ballroom was bustling with music and laughter, the guests oblivious to the storm I feared might come. Romina wasn't there, at least not in sight. But then I heard him, Mr. Potato, the old gardener who knew every secret path in our little vegetable world. She went to the dark forest, he said, shaking his head. The dark forest. My heart nearly stopped. The dark forest wasn't just a place. It was a curse, a shadowy maze of ancient trees where whispers lived and nightmares were born. No one returned from it unchanged, if they returned at all. And that's where Romina had gone. I ran as fast as my old roots could carry me, but the forest loomed ahead like a hungry beast. It was too late to catch her, too late to turn her back. They say she made a pact that night, deep in the heart of the forest where no light could reach. A pact with the shadows, the whispers, the things that thrive on pain and despair. She swore vengeance, not just on Mark, not just on the carrot, but on the world itself. She would make everyone cry, she promised, until the rivers overflowed with their tears. Almost immediately, a young fox, playful and carefree, had wandered into the forest that night, his ears twitching at the sound of her voice, a melody so haunting it lured him closer. He crept through the shadows, curious and unafraid, until he saw her. No one knows exactly what Romina looked like in that moment, but the fox's cries tell the story. His wails echoed through the trees, his nose burning, his eyes streaming as if the very air around her had turned into a weapon. He fled, yelping and blinded, as if the forest itself had betrayed him. By the time the sun rose, the rumors had spread. Romina was no longer just a heartbroken onion. She had become something else entirely, a force of sorrow, a bringer of tears. Her bitterness had seeped into the roots of the forest, and from that night on, the air carried her curse. What she found in those shadows, what she became, was something I could never have imagined. The whispers came first, rumors that she had enslaved the creatures of the forest, forcing them to build a fortress, a dark, towering castle hidden deep in the trees. The foxes, once free and mischievous, were now her unwilling servants. They toiled day and night, carrying stones and carving paths, their bright eyes dimmed with exhaustion. The castle grew, a monstrous thing of blackened stone and twisted vines. It loomed like a scar against the horizon, its jagged towers piercing the sky. No one dared go near it. The air around it was heavy, thick with her curse, and the trees whispered her name, the Onion Queen. Romina, my sweet Romina, had crowned herself ruler of the forest. She demanded absolute obedience from all who lived there, vegetables, animals, even the insects. Those who defied her, who dared to resist, suffered a fate too cruel to imagine. Her curse had grown stronger. She didn't need to speak or even touch her victims. All it took was her presence, her laughter, her wicked, bitter smile. The air around her would thicken with a sharp, stinging vapor, and her victims would begin to cry. Not just tears of sadness, but endless, agonizing sobs. Their tears would drain them, shrinking them until they were nothing more than dried, lifeless husks. The forest became a place of fear, her name spoken only in hushed tones. The Onion Queen ruled with an iron fist, her bitterness spreading like a disease. And yet, despite everything, I can't give up on her. Every night I sit by the window, staring at the path that leads to the forest. No matter what she's done, no matter how far she's fallen, she's still my little girl.
Mrs. Root, your courage tonight is a beacon for all of us. You've shown us that even in the darkest of times, love endures. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And that's it for tonight, my friends. Remember, behind every villain, there's a story. And behind every story, there's a glimmer of hope. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary journey. Well, that wraps up our time here on Beyond the Mic. If you enjoyed the story, why not share it with your friends? And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It's like a high five for us. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another quirky interview. Your support keeps us chatting with the most unexpected guests.